we're going to be showing you how to cook your dried beans on the stovetop. And any bean will do. We're using black beans today, but they can be chickpeas, they can be kidney beans, whatever you have and whatever you need. You'll need your beans, your strainer to check and wash the beans to make sure there's no stones and things like that. You'll need the pot that you will be using to cook the beans in, and a large bowl as well as a measuring cup. The first step is to wash and check your beans for any kind of stones and dirt. Then we'll soak it overnight in water, and then we'll be cooking it on the stovetop. So you want to make sure that you rinse and check your beans for any rocks. I personally haven't found rocks, but I know people who have. And you want to rinse them of any dirt and debris, things like that. So we're going to go to the sink. And you just want to rinse them with cold water. Now we have all our beans washed and sieved. There's no rocks, they're nice and clean. So the next step is to actually cover it in a generous amount of water. We will leave this overnight in the fridge. So we want the beans to rehydrate a little bit, and then make sure there's enough water to keep them submerged overnight. Now I know this looks like a lot of water and you may be able to get away with less water, but personally I've run into an issue. Depending on the age of your beans, they may or may not soak up a lot more water than you might expect overnight. So I just want to ensure that they don't go dry before I can get to them and cook all the beans. We don't want to let them go to waste. So I'm just being extra generous in the amount of water that I'm adding, just in case these are really old beans, because I don't know for sure. They're dry beans, so they could be a couple years old potentially. But just to be extra cautious, I'm filling it roughly to the lip of this bowl, and then we're going to set it in the fridge overnight, and then tomorrow we will cook them on the stove. Now this is what the beans look like once they've been soaking overnight. As you can see, the water level is similar. Sometimes you'll see it drop rather drastically depending on which beans you're using and how old they are. In this case, the beans themselves are much closer to the surface of the water, so they've absorbed a lot of the water, but the volume kind of leveled out. So the next step is to drain these out. As you can see, the waters were very dark, especially with black beans. This is normal. We're also going to give them an extra rinse. This helps get rid of any kind of, well, you know how people say beans make you toot? If you rinse them really well, that will help remove some of the chemical that gives some people the farts. And we're going to try and rinse them until we don't see any color coming out from the bottom anymore. So I think we're pretty good. Now we did do a large quantity of beans, so you don't need to do this much. We just go through black beans quite often. We'll be putting it into a large pot, or whichever size pot fits the amount of beans you're cooking. And my hands are clean. Just want to make sure that they don't go flying out. Now we need to cover it with fresh water to cook with it. And as you can see, it's still a little bit bubbly. That's what happens to the beans once they've been soaked, and that is actually the chemical that makes you toot. But if you can tell there, the water level is about here, and the beans are about that far away. So that should be good enough. If you find that as you're cooking the beans, the water level is going too low below the beans, then you can just top it up as you need. So we'll need to bring this to a boil, so I'm going to put this on max, and I'm also going to cover it. Once this is boiling aggressively, we're going to lower it to a simmer, and we're going to simmer it from either 30 minutes to 2 hours, depending on how long it takes for those particular beans to get tender. As you can see, there's a lot of froth. That's completely normal. Again, that frothing is what makes you toot, usually. We did actually rinse out a lot of this, but again, they're beans. It's kind of part and parcel of cooking beans. So we're going to leave this to simmer for anywhere from 30 minutes to 2 hours. So we're going to let it cool off a little bit, make sure it's simmering, cover it, put a timer for 30 minutes, check in, see if they're tender, and then adjust the time as needed. If you find that it's still pretty hard, then cook for a little longer. I'd check it every 30-45 minutes or so, at least the first time that you do it, until you're more or less used to the timing that you need.
Beans, magical fruit.
Okay, so it's been about 30 minutes. We're going to, that's hot, caution. We're going to carefully, without burning ourselves, check to see if this needs to cook for any longer. So the best way that I've found to double check is to grab a slotted spoon, get a few beans there, and actually squish them to see if they're soft enough. So they squish pretty easily, and the ultimate test, of course, is to taste test. So I'm gonna grab one that's a little bit. Yep, I'd say that's good. They're nice and soft, and to my liking. I will try another one though, because those ones were cut in half by accident. Just want to make sure that the full ones that didn't crack open are cooked properly. This one. Oh, it's hot. Also watch out. So that cracks open very easily. And that one's also soft. Good. So this time our batch of beans cooked in 30 minutes. If yours need a little bit more time, don't worry. Keep it on simmer and put the lid back on. And just come in every few minutes to double check to see if they're tender to your liking. For now, we're going to turn off the heat. So as you'll see, the water turned very dark. This is also normal with black beans. If you get canned beans, you know the liquid that comes in the can, it's very similar to that. So the way that you can store it is with or without the liquid, depending on the recipe and depending on your preference.
So the standard can of beans in Canada is roughly about 2.5 cups. So when we portion our beans to then be put into the freezer, we like to make it roughly as much as a can so that recipes work out well. So I'm just going to separate 2.5 cans into our old takeout container. There we go, so 2.5 cups. And it's ready to go into the freezer. So we just freeze our beans. You can throw them in the fridge if you're going to use them in the near future. You can can them as well. However, if you're canning them, you're not able to do water bath canning. You have to do pressure canning. Beans are not acidic enough to be shelf stable with water bath canning because bacterias are able to develop, so you don't want to do that. We do freezing because we don't have a pressure canner, but you can pressure can it if you want. So today we did 3 cups of dried beans, and we ended up getting 7 cups out of it. It's not an exact science. Some days you're going to get 6, some days you're going to get 7, some days you're going to get 5.5. It's not an exact science, but today we got 7.
It roughly doubles from whatever dry amount you have to the rehydrated amount. Cheers to good food and good company.